Resolution
Do no pass.
do no pass. Honorable for Christchurch South.
Good morning, sir. Let me say at the very outset that I do not concur in these amendments, and I propose, not for the rest of the day, but to indicate to this honorable chamber why I do not concur. And I propose to deal with each amendment chronologically as it appears on the notice. And of course, as always, there will be no complaint as to when I received this notice.
That means you received it in adequate time. Having no complaint, one can infer that you received it on time with the requisite notice.
The operative words, Your Honor, as always, I make no complaint.
That means you had your cell phones and you saw the message.
As you please, sir. Now, I will begin, as I said, chronologically as the notice states. And of course, I refer to the Interception of Communication Bill. Your Honor is unlikely to hear me say much as to the other bills. It is this Interception of Communication Bill that concerns the public of Barbados, and if the government believes that it is a casual matter, the protests in public spaces ought to sensitize the government at this stage that the public takes this legislative initiative very, very seriously, insofar as it collides with a constitutional right. But of course, the legislation quite properly indicates that it is an exception to the Constitution and expresses itself as an exception to the Constitution. But the public still believes that the right to privacy and the right to conduct private telephone calls is a sacred right, so that I meet the duty today to represent the interests of the public, to represent the concerns of the public. And that is the context within which I do not concur. I cannot concur in these amendments, as indeed I could not agree with the legislation as drafted. And the point needs to be made clearly that we, that is here and in the Senate, support police action in which there is interception of communications exclusively pertaining to criminal activity. But any legislation that gives powers to a minister or indeed any politician to participate in the practice of intercepting telephone calls, we must oppose it, we must resist it, we must object to it. And I think the public is with us on that this is a matter for military intervention and not for political intervention. There's no place for a politician, whether that politician is called a minister or not. There's no place for a politician in this legislation. But I repeat, we here and in the other place support any initiative that will curb and arrest violent crime in this country. And therefore, we agree to any initiative that intercepts telephone calls that pursue or discuss illegal activity, but, we repeat, not with the participation of politicians. Permit me then, sir, to come to the first of the amendments, that is, and I read Clause 5.2 B was deleted, and the subsequent paragraphs C, D, E, F, and G were renumbered as paragraphs B, C, D, E, and F. Now, a lot of my discourse today is going to be legalistic, and if the chamber finds it boring, I apologize, but the public needs to be educated as to what this government is trying to do to their privacy, and therefore I will root much of my discourse in the law.
As it relates, I remember the 52B. Just asking.
Now,
As it relates to 52B.
now,
Right. Yes, sir?
oh, there.
No, I remember just asking.
Oh, I see.
Right.
Permit me to read it again, sir. It says, in clause 5.2, paragraph B was deleted, and the subsequent paragraphs C, D, E, F, and G were renumbered as paragraphs B, C, D, E, and F. The amendment pertains to clause 5.2B, C, D, E, F, and G, which were renumbered as paragraphs B, C, D, E, and
F.
So the amendment makes reference to all those paragraphs, those subparagraphs. Now, so that we do not deprive the public of an understanding of what we are talking about, let us tell the public what this section is about, this section 5.
52.
Yes, indeed.
Say 5 basis.
And so that the public has an understanding, the public will be told that this really is about a prohibition. This is prohibitive in nature. It is not permissive. In other words, the conduct to which reference is made here is prohibitive. This is not a section that permits anything. This is a section that prohibits conduct. And what is that conduct prohibited? That conduct prohibits intersection. And indeed it says, and this is to give the public context. Don't let us hide anything from the public, sir. And you won't. You don't wish to do that. So that the public will hear that a person who intentionally intercepts a communication in the course of its transmission by means of a telecommunications network commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $500,000 or to a term of imprisonment of 7 years or to both. So that contextualizes what this is about. It is a prohibition. It is a prohibition against tapping people's phones. And you wish us to come immediately to 5.2. And 5.2 says that 5.2 is really an exemption. It's an exemption. 5 is about a prohibition. It is prohibiting phone tapping. Let me speak in very simple terms. 5 is a section intended to prohibit phone tapping with exemptions. And the section to which you refer, sir, 5.2, is an exemption. In other words, it exempts certain persons in certain circumstances from the condemnation of Section 5 largely. And this is what has been deleted. What has been deleted, Your Honor, is that Section 5.2b, which says that notwithstanding any other law, a person does not commit an offense if the communication is intercepted by an authorized officer in the interest of national security, etc. I would not prolong the issue by reading the thing in its entirety, but what the government has done, the government has removed from within the categories of exemption an authorized officer who intercepted a communication in the interest of national security. In other words, that exemption no longer applies. That is 52B. Now, the amendment from the Senate makes reference to the other exemptions. And those exemptions, where are we? Yes. Those exemptions were contained, as the note from the Senate says, at C, D, E, F, and G. Now, what 52B was doing, 52B was allowing two persons to bypass the courts of this country. It is our position that any interception must be conducted through the ultimate authority of the court. That no interception must be done unless the court is involved, and that is done by warrant, Your Honor. 52B, the one that is amended and removed, was allowing two authorized officers, that is to say the Commissioner of Police and the Director for Anti-Terrorism, it was allowing them to bypass the courts and to intercept people's phones based on the exercise of a discretion. Wisely, and further to protest from this side, that clause has been removed. Further to protest, and the public now knows this, so this is not a point of contention, that we protested that 52B ought not to have been there. That any interception of a person's right to use his telephone for the sake of conversation can only be disturbed if a court grants a warrant to justify or to permit that disturbance or that interception. That has been removed. I repeat, the mischief against which we complained was an interception conducted without the authority of the court. 52B allowed an interception of a telephone conversation without the authority of the court, without the intervention of the court, without the grant of a warrant by a court, and only a court can grant a warrant under this act. So that was removed. What has not been removed, Your Honor, is the original C, D, E, F, and G, as the note from the Senate says. I'm not going to retrace all of them exhaustively, but what I will tell you, sir, and the public, if we go to C, for example, is that a person does not commit an offense under this section if, this is the original C, he has reasonable grounds for believing that the person to whom or by whom the communication is transmitted consents to the interception. In other words, Your Honor.
Honorable member.
Yes, Your Honor.
Honorable, hold on. This amendment speaks to B. It says nothing. This says nothing as it relates to C, D, E, etc. And that's why I'm advising you, because it speaks nothing of C, D. It's a renumbering. It does not touch on concern. The amendment does not touch on concern C, D, etc. It relates to B, and as a removal of B, the renumbering is changed. That is all. That is all, honorable members. So it does nothing. It says nothing in relation to C being a difference in C. Nothing at all. So that any debate that you speak on has to be only related to B. So if honorable can speak to B ad nauseum, ad infinitum. It has nothing to do with the number, just a renumbering. So your debate, anything you are speaking of is limited to B, the impact that B has. It has nothing to do, the renumbering, it does not change, C hasn't changed. So that's what I'm advising you, that it has to be limited to B. Full stop, story done. End of story. It's as simple as that. Continue, I remember.
I am confident that you, Mr. Speaker, will do nothing to trample upon the right to freedom of speech in here. This is a parliament.
Well, no, by controlling here. I control in here. And I'm saying that you are confined. So if you want to speak to B for 4 hours, you can so do. C, D, E, F, G has nothing to do with an amendment coming with any change in C. Full stop. End of story, my friend. I remember, sir, be guided. Otherwise, your speech may get aborted.
I'm going to skin this cat a different way.
Try to do that, but the cat will instead be dead.
I'm going to skin this cat a different way. Your Honor, no one will accuse you of trampling my right to freedom of speech in, of all places, of Parliament. And as I always say,
have never done, will never do.
Precisely. And we now know, further to the education that I gave them, that Parliament derives from the French word parlement, a place of speech, and implied within that is that it is a place of free speech, and that all matters that pertain to the rights, interests, and entitlements of the citizen are to be ventilated in this place. But if you, sir, tell me today that an amendment which refers to all of the original paragraphs, and I'm going to read it.
Well, I want you to.
I'm going to read it.
Again,
in clause 5.2, paragraph B was deleted.
Yes.
And the subsequent paragraphs, C, D, E, F, and G, were renumbered as paragraphs B, C, D, E, and F. Do not, Your
Honorable
Honor.
member, I have said it and I will say it no more. Your speech in here is confined exclusively to any debate on paragraph B, the deletion of paragraph B. The renumbering of it is as a result of the deletion. Nothing has, the substantive issue is related only to paragraph B. End of story. And if you continue that, I will ask you to sit down. And you don't wish to do that. You have free speech, but your speech is confined to the substance matter before this honorable chamber. If you want to speak, you have all the time in the world to speak in another place about this, about C, D, E, F, and G. But this is confined to the removal of B. B, according to you, was the clause that caused concern. Continue. Honorable member for Christchurch.
I'm obliged to you, sir. Now, at the urging of the Honorable Attorney General, it seems that an attempt is made by the Honorable Attorney General, not by you, sir, to confine us to 5.2b, although reference is made to the other subparagraphs which remain.
On a point of order, Mr. Speaker, I have not spoken in this matter beyond moving the motion to pass the resolution. The honourable member has to withdraw that.
All member, please do not insinuate in this chamber, please.
I proceed, sir. Now,
I remember before.
yes,
I just want to, you have the standing orders, correct? And standing order 34 is of assistance to you.
yes. I'll hear you read it, sir.
Debate upon any motion, bill, or amendment thereto shall be relevant to such motion, bill, or amendment. End of story.
Yes, relevant.
Right, that's what the B is. That's what it's
The word relevant is
Yes,
used.
so only, exactly, so that's what I'm
It
saying.
shall be relevant.
And confine yourself.
So that if the learned Attorney General tells you today that a number of sub-paragraphs are not relevant to the one that's deleted, let him defend that argument.
Only remember, I said what I had to say.
And
And I rule in this chair, and you shall confine it to be.
yes, yes.
Right, so
well, I am going to
so
now tell
only
the
remember,
public,
for the sake of brevity, right? Please don't make any mention of C, D, and F. Please speak to me. But I rule in, I am the person that controls in here.
Well, I will speak of 5.2b in this way.
Right. The only way. Yeah.
5.2b, which has been deleted by this government, was deleted because it permitted certain persons within the system to bypass the courts. I repeat that for the sake of the public, because I was hoping that the government understood that. Of course, they didn't understand that last week when they brought this legislation in here and were forced to change it further to our protests in the public domain and in here. They did not understand, they seem not to have understood that this legislation, and two in particular, two of them got up in here and said that the only way you could intercept somebody's phone was by going to the court. And 5.2b was there staring at them. Either they came here without having read the legislation, or they read it in English and could not understand it. That is what they said in here, and we protested, and they changed it. And today they have come here to withdraw, to delete 5.2b. Let me deal with 5.2b then, sir. 5.2b was deleted by this embarrassed government because it permitted phone tapping to be done without resort to the court. That is the sin. That is the mischief against which we complained. So I'll speak about 5.2b. And I will say to this Parliament and to the people of Barbados that in attempting to remove 5.2b as a way of solving the problem of bypassing the court, the problem still has not been solved. This is relevant. I say it again. In removing section 5.2b, which allowed for bypass of the court, the problem of bypassing the court still has not been solved because 5.2 contains other bypasses of the court. So the deletion of 5.2b does not solve the problem, and the public needs to know that. The public needs to know that there are still sections in this legislation which allow bypass of the court. In other words, which allows phone tapping to be done without resort to the court. They can name the sections if they wish. They can name the sections if they wish. They can go and pick up the paper that came from the Senate and talk about what was deleted. All this is relevant. I don't have to say which subsections were not deleted, but they deleted 5.2b because it allowed two functionaries to bypass the court. All I'm saying today, sir, is that it does not solve the problem. And I want the public to hear me. I want the public to hear me say that the problem has not been solved entirely, that there are still portions in this act which allow for phone tapping without the intervention of the court.
I remember.
They heard me?
I remember. I do not.
The public heard me?
I remember. I do not wish you to tread on repetitive examples.
Thank you.
Do not wish you to tread there.
Thank you. Just want to be heard.
You have said that 3 times already, I remember.
Yes, because I want to be heard.
And it has been heard.
Thank you very much, sir. I want all of them to hear it because two came in here on the 8th of what? August. 2 members of this chamber came in here and told their colleagues that the only way in which you could tap somebody's phone is if you went to the court. You want me to name them? The learned Attorney General and the Honorable Member for Christchurch East came in here and trumpeted aloud and abroad that phone tapping could not be done unless you went through the court. It was, look, don't tempt me into saying it was a lie, because they may not have known. And I should not accuse them of being liars, and I will not. What I can do, I can accuse them of coming to this chamber without having read the legislation. Without having read the legislation. And further to public protest that we made. In embarrassment, they embarrassed the whole government. They embarrassed the whole government when they came in here on the 8th of August and told this chamber and told this country, oh, the only way you can tap somebody's phone is through the court. Through a court what? You could have done it by two authorized persons, one the Commissioner of Police and the other one the Director for Anti-Terrorism. They were allowed to do it under this legislation. In embarrassment, they embarrassed the whole government. Two of them embarrassed the whole government. And because of our protests, because of our insistence that this legislation could only become valid, morally valid, was if the court was allowed the exclusive jurisdiction to oversee phone tapping. And that has always been our position. But the position of this government clearly was to insert clauses in the legislation which allowed other persons other than the court, to implement, to execute, and to supervise phone tapping. And that is what Section 52B did. And that is why today, in their embarrassment, they are withdrawing Section 52B. I say that Section 52B does not solve the problem entirely, because there's still other sections. Pardon me for shouting. Pardon me for getting angry. The public is angry too. You think people feel comfortable in this country that every time they pick up their phone and the precious medium of WhatsApp, somebody's listening to them, claiming that it is to suppress crime, when we in this country knows it is political? But pardon me, and pardon me, but I want the public to know that 52B, the deletion of 52B, the exclusion, the excision of 52B from this legislation still does not solve the problem. That under this act as amended, there's still a bypass of the court. I am finished with that. Let the public know. I don't have to repeat it 1,000 times. Let the public know that the problem is not solved. Permit me to move on to the other one, sir. And merely to wrap up on that and to say that that 52B was not in nature permissive. It was prohibitive. It was about an activity that was prohibited, and the public needs to know this. When you sit down and you read legislation as a trained lawyer and claim qualification to educate the public on it, you must do so with competence. And I'm not being arrogant. I'm angry. I'm angry that I came here this morning to elucidate on this matter, to tell the public precisely what this incompetent and embarrassed government is doing. And the learned Attorney General is trying to stop me. Why did
Honourable Member, I will not permit you to make I want you to clearly unauthorized assertions that are untrue. Continue, please.
the gentleman got from his seat?
Honourable Member, please, continue.
I'm obliged to you, sir. So that the public must know, the public needs to be told that this controversial 52B, which is not the only controversial one, there are others that are left, but you asked me to focus on 52B.
No, I didn't ask you to focus. No, I did not ask you. I told you you must confine your speech to 52B. I didn't ask you anything. I told you you shall confine any speech you have in relation to that to 52B. I did not ask you, honourable member. I don't ask in this honourable chamber. I don't ask in this honourable chamber.
All right, I almost said something, sir. I almost said something.
Honestly, honourable member, you wouldn't want to be cited for contempt. Because if you are cited for contempt, as the judicial officer, you know what the penalty is. You know what the penalty for contempt, you have to show a cause, and if you can't show a cause, you will be removed. And you don't, it's too early in the day. It's before 12 o'clock. Continue on, remember.
Oh, how I cherish freedom of speech. Oh, how I cherish freedom of speech. And I will continue to exercise it. I don't commit contempt here nor anywhere. This initiative is contemptuous to the people of Barbados. That is where the contempt lies. And it must be exposed for what it is. And I'm saying that 52B is not a part of any permission given to an authority. It is within the context of prohibition. 52B is about prohibition. It is prohibitive. It is saying to the functionaries what they may not do. And 52B went further and said to them, we are saying to you what you may not do, but if you do it, we pardon you. We exempt you from criminality because it is a criminal offense. Section 5 makes what is done at 52B a criminal offense. But 52B then gave them immunity. It permitted it, although it was within the larger context of prohibition. That's what it was. It wasn't a positive averment as to what one may or shall do. It was an exemption within the context of prohibition. Let the public understand that. And let the public understand that an embarrassed government which has attempted to amend it has not amended it entirely. That there are functionaries, if this legislation is passed, there are persons who will still be able to phone tap without going to the court. I am finished with that. And I come now to the other amendment. You know, John Milton, writing in Paradise Law, said, with ruin upon ruin, route on route, confusion worse confounded. Look, this government has created such confusion in trying to pass a bill that they had not read. Clearly they had not read it. If they had read it, we would not be here today. If they had read it, we would not have come here and had an honorable Prime Minister intervene and suggest amendment while on her feet. While on her feet, the honorable Prime Minister suggested an amendment consistent with my submission. In other words, the honorable Prime Minister was saying the honorable member for Christchurch South was right. But what is interesting is that the honorable member for St. Michael Northeast made no reference to the members of the cabinet. I've never seen it done like that. That an honorable Prime Minister stands in here and suggests an amendment to legislation, and by the end of the debate, the legislation is amended without the participation of the cabinet. In broad daylight, Barbadians saw, under the glare of lights, Barbadians saw what they had speculated upon for a long time, for 7 years. One-person government. That you stand in a chamber and suggest an amendment to legislation, and by the time the debate finishes, the legislation is amended. The cabinet met where? The cabinet met while they were here.
Honourable member, what you are speaking to have anything to do with this, with 52B or with any?
I'm off 52B, sir.
No, but confine your debate to the respective clauses relative to the amendment emanating from the Honorable the Senate. This is going to be a final time that I am asking you to confine the amendments to what has come from the Senate, please.
Thank you, sir.
If you want political speeches, the time draws nigh for that, honorable member.
You're giving me the date?
You will have your time. Sundays upon us, honorable member. Please confine it to what is in this that came from the Senate.
With ruin upon ruin, route on route, confusion worse confounded. We saw for the first time in this country one person among legislation. In here. So let me, sir, please you and come to...
No, not please me. Adhere to the standing order. You're not pleasing the chair. You are adhering to the standing orders.
Well, then let my adherence please you, sir. We come to clause 13, subclause 2. The Senate sent another message to this confused government. I know they're embarrassed, but you don't go to prison for embarrassment.
You don't get thrown out for that either. So be careful that you don't have to throw you out.
Nobody can throw me out here.
No, I will not throw you out. I will ask you to leave or be put out. I don't throw out people. The marshal does that.
Not a fella can throw me out here. The people send me in here. Now, in clause 13.2, I'm reading what came from the Senate. In clause 13.2, the word authority was deleted. The word commission substituted therefore. They couldn't even get that written properly. Let's read it again. In clause 13.2, the word authority was deleted. The word commission substituted therefore. Let us go to 13.2. We're off 5B, having told you, sir, that it does not solve the problem entirely. So let's go to 13.2 that has been amended by an embarrassed government. 13.2 is a section which deals with the duty of reporting. And without reading the section word for word, I give context. And you would want me to give context because you are a good lawyer and you understand that when a submission is made, a court will ask, give some context. So you want context, sir. And you want the public to understand what we are talking about. So the rubric reads, a report on progress. In other words, when it goes to a judge, when the matter of an interception goes before a judge, the judge can ask for a report as to the progress of the interception. That is putting it succinctly. So here's what 13.2 says. Having given the context, a judge grants a warrant permitting a warrant to be executed for the purpose of intercepting some person's phone. And it goes on to say that that person, not that person, that the persons who intercepted should come back to the court and give a report, and that's fair. Now here's 13.2, sir. 13.2. Yes. 13.2 is preserved. That is the point that needs to be made. 13.2 is preserved. All they've done to 13.2 is that they have deleted the word authority and replaced it with the word commission. Now, if one were not diligent and vigilant, one would come to the conclusion that it was typographical or cosmetic. It is not. It is fundamental. Let me read 13.2 for the sake of the public, sir. The report under subsection 1, you see it refers to subsection 1. So that's why the public needs to know what subsection 1 was about. And subsection 1 is about a duty to report to the court after the court has issued a warrant permitting the interception. The report under subsection 1 shall also be submitted to the Independent Monitoring Commission for monitoring and assessment purposes. What is happening there, Your Honor, is that the person who received the warrant, let us say the Commissioner of Police, the Commissioner of Police received a warrant to intercept somebody's phone calls. And I'm going to speak in plain language, because that is what this is about, and the public must not be distracted by all the fancy terms about wiretapping and interception. This is about invading people's private telephone calls. Permit me to read again, sir, since you were interrupted. The report under subsection 1 shall also be submitted to the Independent Monitoring Commission for monitoring and assessment purposes. Now here is the Commissioner of Police, for example, giving a report to the court as to the progress of the phone tapping. Here is section 13, subsection 2, telling the Commissioner of Police that apart from reporting to the court, he must also report to the Independent Monitoring Commission. Now, you know, sir, that that is a sin in law. Those who do not have legal training would wish to hear why I say that it is a sin in law. When a court is overseeing something, sir, the court ought to have what we call exclusive jurisdiction. No body, and when I say body, no institution, must have equal and concurrent jurisdiction with the court. Beg your pardon, sir?
Honourable Member, this issue in relation to what you are speaking of,
13.2.
you would have debated that before.
No, I didn't touch this at all, sir.
Honourable Member,
Didn't touch it.
Honourable Member, this is about the changing of the name, Honourable Member. The bills and the respective sections were debated in this honourable chamber before, Honourable Member. So as I said before, you're confined to the changing of the words. The debate was already debated in the House, and you had full discourse on it. It's dealing specifically with the changing of the words, sir. So you're not allowed to start over a fresh debate on the relevance on it, sir. That is not before this chamber. It is something to do specific to the amendment, the changing of the words from authority to commission, sir. That is what this debate is founded about. This is the confinement of this debate, sir. So you cannot go debate rehashing the entire bill, sir. That is not permissible in relation to this amendment.
A few minutes ago, sir, I don't intend to quarrel with anybody in here.
Surely you can't quarrel with me. You can quarrel with them. Yes, you are allowed to quarrel with them if you so desire. You can't quarrel with this chair.
I can do this job, you know.
I will not. Yes, but you are doing this job under my jurisdiction. Simply put.
A few minutes ago, sir, I heard that my arguments must be restricted to 5.2b. That is what I heard. And consistent with that direction, I am confining my arguments to section 13.2.
In relation to two words.
No. I beg your pardon, sir.
Yes, sir. It's speaking to, yes, that's what it's confined to.
So
yes, it is confined to the changing
of two words?
Yes, sir. From authority to commission.
Right. Well, let us confine it to the replacement of the word authority with commission. Let us do that. And let us tell the public that the report was not intended to be given to an authority, it was intended to be given to a commission. And we are saying that a report must not be given to a commission when it has also been given to a court. Is that not allowed to be said? Must not the public know what these amendments are about? Must the public now be left to believe that these amendments merely concern themselves with one word being substituted for another, or is the public entitled to hear why? Is not the public entitled to hear that a report goes to the court? Fine, it goes to the report. But the public is entitled to hear that it also, a similar and identical report goes to a body called the commission, which must now be regarded as competing with a court. We call that equal and concurrent jurisdiction, and it is against the law. It undermines the independence of the judiciary. No reporting that is done to a court can be done to any body which is inferior to a court. That's the point, and you know the law, sir. Don't let them mislead you.
But you can't either. I remember, neither can you. Continue, I remember.
Okay, good Lord, here today. Who don't want to listen, don't listen. Go in the room there, y'all go in and drink rum.
I remember. Please have that. I remember, withdraw that statement, I remember.
I withdraw it, sir. I'm entitled, sir, to deal with section 13.2. And we are saying, sir, that when this is amended to give authority to a functionary to report to a commission, it is given to that inferior body jurisdiction that is equal and concurrent with that of a court, and it is therefore unconstitutional in that it undermines the independence of the judiciary. And one of the elements, the quintessential elements of judicial function and office is that it must be independent, and there must be no body that competes with the authority of the court, the jurisdiction of the court. Here we have an act of parliament at section 13.2, which is given to something called an independent monitoring commission authority that is concurrent and equal to that of a court. That is a constitutional sin. It must not happen. This legislation trespasses on good constitutional law. It is wrong. They must remove it. And that's why we've repeatedly called for the scrapping of this legislation, the withdrawal of this legislation. It is in a state of confusion. They keep amending it here, and they've amended it in the Senate, and they come back here and it still is deficient, and that is what the public needs to understand. I'm sorry for being angry, sir. I'm sorry for being angry. But I'm not alone in my anger. The public is angry about this. They were angry about Kent. They were angry about cybercrime. They're entitled to be angry about this. This government continues to trample on the rights of the people in this country under the guise of legislation. And this is one such piece of legislation that tramples on the rights of people. It is unconstitutional. Section 13, subsection 2 is unconstitutional, and it must be removed. Not the mere removal of words. Section 13.2 must be removed in its entirety. And this legislation must find its ultimate destination, if not back in the office of the Chief Parliamentary Council, at some parliamentary subcommittee which will talk some sense and tell them that it is wrong and that it is unconstitutional. And having brought it back here, there is no remedy that has been affected. This legislation is in a state of confusion, a woeful state of confusion. Ruin upon ruin, rout on rout, confusion worse confounded, John Milton, Paradise Lost. That is how I characterize section 13.2 and section 5.2b. Need not repeat the point, sir. Let me go on then to the other amendment that they've made. I have a job to do. Don't come in here to waste time. I have a job to do. People expect me to come in here, and waste time and say things that a government can smile about when a government is trampling on the rights of people. No, I won't do it. Clause 14.3. The word authority was deleted and the word commission substituted therefore. The same sin is committed. The sin, the constitutional sin of a clause that trespasses on the independence of the judiciary. So I need not repeat what I've said in relation to 13.2. I'm going to move quickly. The next clause that they amended uh, 21.9, no need to deal with that, sir. Yes, the others, I admit, are genuinely cosmetic, genuinely typographical. In 26.6, for example, the word 3 was deleted and the word subsection 5 was substituted. Therefore, I'm not going to waste your time on that, sir. That is cosmetic. I will come, though, to what was amended after I spoke in here, and I'm going to remind you, sir, of the sequence of events. The learned Attorney General spoke. This is the sequence of events, sir. Even this, he's going to object to. The honorable member is going to object to. No, he will not. There's a note saying that the House, at its sitting on Friday, 8th August, amended the Interception of Communications Bill in the following terms. At the second schedule, the word minister wherever it appears was deleted and the word president substituted. Therefore, you recall, sir, that it was my suggestion that a minister, whoever is that minister, had no right of participation.
Honourable member.
Just to remind and give context.
No,
sir.
honourable member, please. That is not in the amendment from the Senate, sir.
Oh, I was dealing with the amendment from the House.
But the
Yes.
amendment from the House is not before this honourable
Yes.
chamber.
Granted, sir.
So I deal with
Granted.
the amendments from the Senate.
Yes, yes. Well, let us deal with the amendments from the Senate. I thought you wanted full context.
I do not wish any, no. It's what, it is specific, there's specificity. You
Yes.
know that very well.
Well, let us come
Right.
to what the Senate, the message that the Senate sent.
I thought you were moving on to you are finished with the communications bill, honourable member?
No, sir.
I just-
No, sir. The Senate sent a message, and I put it like that, permit me to, sir, that in the second schedule,
Right, okay.
paragraph 6.1, the words "or chief executive officer" were deleted. Now, I find that rather interesting. 6.1. 6.1 says, a commissioner other than the chairman or chief executive officer may at any time resign from office by instrument in writing, etc., addressed to the chairman. Now, the only thing that I would say there is that one wonders how those three words slipped into legislation in respect of which a cabinet deliberated, in respect of which a cabinet gave approval, in respect of which a learned Attorney General certified as being good legislation, and the big three words, Chief Executive Officer, slipped in, and I know what that is about. I know what that is about, sir. And the public can guess as to what it is about. It was contemplated that the Independent Monitoring Commission would have a chief executive officer, give one of the boys or girls a job. You got a little Independent Monitoring Commission doing very little, but give one of the boys or girls a job of CEO to sit down, look through a window and get $15,000 a month of the taxpayers' money. So that is what that is about, sir. I wouldn't trouble you with it too long. Wouldn't trouble you with that too long, sir. That is mentioned within a schedule. I mean, the schedule is so ridiculous, sir, that as a lawyer, it will embarrass you to hear that this legislation is asking the president of this country to set the amount of money that is paid to a commission. That's why the Governor General has, beg your pardon.
I remember, we are speaking to 6.1, please. in the second schedule?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please.
Yes,
please,
Your Honor.
but confine it.
Yes.
I didn't see,
Yes.
you see a word here, Mark, President, in
Right.
6-1?
So what we must
So
do,
please,
sir-
no, you using, the word president is not mentioned in 6-1.
Right.
Please deal with, you just dealt with it, please.
Let us then abide by your ruling, sir. And not, you must pay
But,
the chief executive
Honourable
officer.
member, this has nothing to do with the president and salaries, please.
As you please, sir. But I will continue to criticize the presence in 6-1 of the schedule, which makes large reference to a chief executive officer, how it got in there. This gentleman who brought this legislation here, this honorable gentleman, I beg your pardon, who brought this legislation here, did not see that. A cabinet of 20-something persons did not see, while they deliberated upon this important piece of legislation, while they deliberated all being awake, did not see the word chief executive officer there. And I am suggesting that that word was inserted there, not accidentally, but as a means of giving a job to someone. A job that entailed very little labor. But the word is there. Chief executive officer, and in embarrassment, like the others, they have come and withdrawn it. They have withdrawn it. You mean this got past a whole cabinet of 20-something people? This got past the House on the 8th of August and reached the Senate and was discovered only when it reached the Senate. They didn't read it. But I'm suggesting that it was not an error. I am suggesting to you, sir, that this was deliberate. And I make the suggestion again that this was government's attempt to hand a job to someone, a high-paying job with very little labor. So if you want me to restrict myself to the word, sir, I abide by your ruling. There are other amendments that came back from the Senate pertaining to the intersection of communication bill. You would notice, sir, I've left them out because, in fairness, I think that those are genuinely cosmetic. For example, in clause 24, subclause 5 was deleted and subclause 6 was renumbered as subclause 5. Let me confirm that, sir. 5 was deleted. Yes, subclause 5 is deleted obviously because 5.2b, to which you referred so often this morning, was removed, and I beg your pardon, 24.5 is deleted because 24.5 makes direct and specific reference to 5.2b. So if you remove 5.2b, obviously you have to remove 24.5. So one understands why that has been done, but I will say again, sir, that these deletions, these amendments, including this one, does not resolve the legislative confusion that confronts this House of Assembly. That this act, when it came here, was in a state of illegality. The government has attempted to cure the illegality, and the government has created even greater confusion. with these various amendments. Greater confusion has been created. This legislation today, and I'm sure you will allow a general comment. This legislation today will return, well, not return, it did not go there before. This legislation will go into the public domain as law. And it contains so many contradictions. It contains so many unconstitutional provisions that the only good thing to do with this legislation is to take it back, that is to say, to withdraw it or send it to a subcommittee, the relevant subcommittee, that will erase all of the errors. The fact that it is here, sir, is evidence as to government's concession that there are several errors. There are too many errors, sir. To send this legislation into the public domain as law is a grand mistake. And it must not happen. And it must not happen, Your Honor, because the subject matter with which it deals is too important a subject matter for confusion to reign. Given two public functionaries, supervised and monitored by three persons, the right to tap people's phones. This is general, sir.
I remember I've permitted you
Yes.
beyond where you should go.
Yes. This is general.
Thank you so much.
And so, that is my general comment as to the various amendments that have come here. That they have not resolved the issue of confusion. I will say nothing about the Criminal Proceedings Witness Anonymity Bill. A lot of your time, sir, is spent in the criminal courts, and you understand the reason and the cause for reforming the law in that very dynamic area, so that I will not delay the chamber with any comment as to those amendments. The firearms bill, the firearms amendment bill, same thing, sir. It is such a dynamic area. Apparently you can make firearms with some computer-aided device, so that the law needs to be as dynamic as is the technology. So on that firearms amendment bill and the suggested amendment which pertains to a definition of firearm, one can understand why a parliament would wish to remain dynamic. As I said, a firearm is now so easily manufactured with the aid of a computer that one would not quarrel with any legislative initiative to remain within reach of the technology. It is a matter of some disappointment that no amendment was made to the family leave bill, but if it is not there, I am not supposed to comment on it.
No, you can't.
And
No,
I
you're
won't.
not supposed to. I will not allow you.
And I won't.
Right.
And so, my protest today will remain confined to the interception of communication bill and the various subsections that have been amended from the first one down to the last one in the second schedule. I have placed on record the various reasons for my objection, for my opposition. I continue to be opposed to those amendments, and I continue to be opposed to this bill as drafted, whether it is amended or not. And having been so amended today, my opposition today continues in relation to the interception of communication bill. I think it is unconstitutional. I think that clause 13.2 certainly is unconstitutional. Clause 14.3 is as unconstitutional as clause 13.2, and we complain about that as well. And the second schedule contains amendments that remain deficient. So that, Your Honor, those are my submissions, and I am obliged to you for your patience today, sir. Thank you, sir.
Indeed, I've been very patient with you.